Welcome back, everyone. I am back with Kiran of Broadway Living Inc. And today, I think we're going to talk about something that's been really a buzzword over the past 6 to 12 months. We're getting creative in our financing, and it's VTB, vendor take back mortgages. Kieran, they've become very popular. Uh, I hear a lot of agents now advertising VTBs in their sellers' opportunities.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Jim, for inviting me. And very interesting topic. And if we use correctly, people can make a lot of profits. But we need to use it correctly, and it needs to be for the right deal.
Right. So for those of you that are watching and you haven't heard the phrase before, VTB, vendor take back, Kieran, what's the easiest way that you could explain that to them?
So, let's go back. So, any property we buy, so there are two components, right? One is for financial side. One is a down payment that comes from the buyer, and then there's a bigger portion mortgage payment that comes from the bank. And like a lender, B lender, C lender. So you can get a loan to value. If it's a primary resident, you have 5% down, and then 95% loan if it's a CMHC mortgage, insured mortgage. And otherwise, if it's a rental property, you have to come up with 20% down payment, and then 80% will be given by the bank. So in residential, like people buying houses, so there is no, there's a lot on the market, and it's a individual preference. People are able to come up with down payment from their savings, or from another property. But on the commercial side, vendor takebacks are very common. The reason one is there is a option, because you on a commercial side, sellers make profit, and then on the profit, they need to pay capital gain. The capital gain is like 50% of the for profit. Like they have to pay taxes on that. So if the seller helps the buyer with that down payment, and then also becomes a bank, like they can borrow from the seller at a certain term, just like a bank. Like we have amortization for 30 years or 25 years, and then every 5 years we have a rate change. So same with the seller, you can have a term. He can give you the vendor take back like 50,000 or 100K, depending upon what the numbers work, which we can talk about in a minute. You can borrow that amount for the down payment from the seller at 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and also at a rate where the numbers work: 2%, 3%, 4%, and sometimes none of the interest rate work. Then the seller can give you 0% for 2 year or 3 years.
Sure.
So this is a vendor take back that helping with the down payment. And also sometimes the property is in such a condition that none of the financing works, but the seller and the buyer agrees to buy that property, does that, they agree to do the transaction, and then the seller can give you 95% vendor take back, which means that seller has become the bank. So it's just like has become majority, of the financing is coming from the seller, and then the 5% buyer can come up. And on the other side, sometimes the property, like if it's a really great transaction, and it can be 100% vendor take back too, so you don't need to come up with anything to do the transaction. Really, really important. I have seen like investors looking for vendor take back, and I will really encourage you to look at the property. What can we do to the property? Because like we are giving the bank money, right? Like we're giving the mortgage payment to the bank that we borrowed from the bank at a certain rate and certain term, and we have 5 years. If the vendor take back, the rate and the term is short, and the rates are high, like 10% or 8 or 9% for the vendor take back, and then the term is like 1 year or only 6 months, how is the buyer going to give that money back to the seller? So that's really, really, really important thing is look for the property where we can do something that we are able to give back to the seller and go to the bank. So end of the day, as real estate investors, our goal is to have a cash flow, make a profit, so that from the profit we can move on to the next investment. And in the meantime, we have a mortgage pay down and some cash flow that's helping out to generate our wealth. Yes.
I love it. Beautiful. Very excellent job, Kiran. Now, I mean, capital gains can really, everybody watching, you really have to understand how capital gains work. Speak to a real estate investor focused accountant, keep the real estate focused professionals in your corner. That's your team. That is imperative for you to winning at real estate investing. Now, with capital gains, I just want people to understand, Kiran, when you mentioned capital gains and we're trying to find a way to reduce that, how specifically can we make it so the seller, and we're pitching it to the seller and the seller's agent, that by doing this strategy is going to reduce their capital gains? How can give an example of that, please?
So example that like 10 years ago, like properties appreciate so much, like over time, like a double, triple, four times. So, and that makes everybody happy. And that's why we buy real estate, right? So, so for example, a seller, he bought a property 15 years ago and now for 100K. And now that property is worth, like just a random number, just property is worth, let's say 600K. And he made a profit of like 100K, he bought it for, and then now it's worth 500K and it's selling for 500K. The 400K is, like let's say after doing all the writing of expenses, he made a profit of 400K. On the 400K, when you divide into two, 50% of the profit, 400K, he will be paying taxes. 50% will be taxes on that, on the tax rate. Well, that depends upon his condition and like his financing condition, like how much, if he's able to write off on that particular year, that he can show more expenses that he doesn't come up with the that he has to pay for the capital gain. And also, if he reinvests that money, that profit money, within 3 months that he has not made any profit, he just made another transaction. So really looking at what the seller's intentions are. So you can help out rather than paying that 50% like tax of the profit to the CRA. He can help the buyer, that buyer can lend out from the seller over a time, like 2-year time or 3-year time. That gives the seller time to think about or doing the transactions, and he can spread out those investments. For example, he gets like a profit, like 2 years or 3 years, he's getting some of the more payments, and he can use those payments for the next transaction. Because finding a property where he can do the same and make it takes time, right? And then depending on where the market is, if the seller's market, he want to sell it, take the profit now, give a buyer vendor take back, and in 2 years or like in 1 year, he does a transaction and where he gets the balloon payment of that from the buyer, and he can reinvest that money. Or if he's old, he doesn't want to like reinvest that money, he's done with real estate and he just wanted to retire, he can use that money for his retirement. For example, we have a vendor take back on one of our property, and we are paying our seller monthly interest payments, and our term was 1 year, and every month my seller gets like payments like $230, and that's interest, and that interest is that's better than the bank, rather than money sitting in the bank, and then she's using that money to pay her expenses, whatever she wants, and then In the meantime, so like 1 year time, and she's doing that another transaction where she will be using that money. So that's helping, that was her goal. And then she just needed more time to think about what I'm gonna do with the money.
So
And
I
interest payment, like lending, is always good, right? Banks, that's how banks make money. They don't use their own money, they use our checking account money, the interest payment from our credit cards to give to other people. And they are the middleman. Take from charge high interest 20% on the credit cards, or like there's a monthly bank account fees, and then all those add up, and then they lend out for the line of credits, or to other people, like mortgages. And banks, they have some capital reserve, but they don't have their own money. And same like seller, so seller becomes the bank, that's the vendor take back. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and great points. And so for those of you listening and watching, Kieran dropped a lot of golden nuggets there that can get your mind thinking. I mean, that older seller, for instance, once you work out this vendor take back with them and they're realizing that they're getting these interest payments, you probably at this point have created a relationship with them. And now you can be like, okay, I paid them back now. You had your monthly interest payments. I paid you. You got your money back, Mr. Seller, and we've gotten to know to trust each other now over the course of this project. We have another project up and coming. Would you like to participate in that? And that money that I just gave back to you, I can continue paying a monthly fee, and let's look at this opportunity. So now you've just carried on a money partner to the next project from somebody that never thought that they would be enjoying their retirement, watching another younger generation blossom into being a real estate investor. So it can create a great opportunity there.
I agree. And then some of the commercial in properties, those are really, really big, investments, like a really big amount, like 10 million project, or like 15 million project. And banks, they don't want to take risk. They look at their risk appetite, and when the interest rates are high and the seller wants to sell, you need to put up more down payment to bring that DSCR, that service coverage ratio, down to have the transaction done. So for example, the bank is only able to give you 50% loan, and then 50% you have to come with down payment, then only they will do the transaction. Seller knows the property best, and buyer loves the property, they want to buy, but they don't have the 50% down payment. But buyer has a plan that they are going to add units or do something to the property. In the meantime, that $10 million property is going to be like more, worth like 20 million or 25 million, right? And then but the seller doesn't have a time or any reason, or money, or exhausted any reason, but the buyer is interested to do the transaction. So that 50% down payment can come from either GV partners, or can be buyer's own fund, and it can be coming from the seller, because seller has bought over a long time ago, and they have the money sitting. So rather than help out doing the transaction, otherwise those big transactions, the property sit on the market because you have very small buyer pool, right? Like a single family house, or like very small property, like you will have backup offers and stuff like that. But then bigger transactions, very less buyers, and you need certain kind of investors who will do those transactions. So helping the buyer so that the property doesn't sit on the MLS for a long time, and prevent capital gain, and love the interest payments monthly. So yeah. And on the top, it's a secured on the property. The buyer doesn't pay, the property goes back to the seller, right?
Right. Yeah. Perfect. And I mean, and that's the whole key, relationship and real estate investing is often about relationships, and it's about creating win-win-wins type of things for the buyers, the seller, and everybody, the people inhabiting the space as well. So it's about taking a holistic approach to it. Now, the other thing that we were talking about earlier too is the capital gains, and Kieran was mentioning a lot of great tips there as well. The lower you can get the purchase price down for your seller, the less capital gains they're going to pay. So that comes in constructive with VTBs can be constructive and assisting in that. But then when it comes to be your time as the buyer, now you've had this property for 12 to 24 months, depending on the scale of the renovations that you need to do to it. Now you know that you've got the value down low because you're able to work out a special deal with the seller. It's really should be appraised at around this height, and you're going back to the bank and you're bringing the value up to here. Now you've got this major gap as well that you've created in terms of the appraisal. So there's great opportunity for you there as well. Make sure you have enough funds to pay back your investors and pay them back in a timely manner, and then move on to the next project as well.
I agree. It's all about what you buy and what you can, do to the property, and so that it can be appraised higher. And for if we talk about like the terms, ask if they're open. So the first thing, like anybody looking, or like even should always look for vendor take back, because we can use our own funds for the down payment, but we can also use that funds for another project if the seller is open to vendor take back. But this should not be the first thing we talk to our seller. And if, for just example, if I am the seller and then investor calls me, or like my realtor asks me if buyer is asking if I'm open for vendor take back, the first question is gonna come to my mind. I don't know the buyer. I don't know if their financing is gonna approve. I don't know them. Have they done projects like this before? Why are they asking? They don't have a down payment. They're just wasting my time. But if I have a relationship built up and they know my portfolio, they know that I'm not the first time buyer, and I have done these transactions, and I know what it takes to do the transaction this time. They know how much knowledge I have, how much experience I have, and if I can show them that I am the best person who can buy this property, and we need to make sure that then they will be open for vendor take back. That's like last question. Do your due diligence. Make sure that if you are taking vendor take back, that you are going to get the money back, return to the seller. Bank's money, that down payment can, if we are not using that vendor take back, that our down payment can sit in the property for a few years until it's, we are not in a rush. But with the vendor take back, there is a certain term. We need to give that money or the funds back to the seller. So it's really, really, really important that we look for the project where we can do something to the property, that we are increasing the value and we have the funds available. And for the term can be 2 year, 3 year, longer is great. But that depends upon what the sellers are, what their goals are. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about understanding where the seller's goals are, what they need, what they plan on doing with the monies, once you get to know the seller's reason and the seller's why, you can get a little bit more creative to find that win-win situation in terms of pitching them an opportunity for that. So I love that. And VTBs, thankfully, are becoming less, they're becoming more popular. So before, I know a couple of years ago, there was a lot of education where the buyer's agent would try to be explaining to the seller's agent what a VTB is, and then the seller's agent would have to go and explain to the seller what a VTB is, and you get broken telephones sometimes there where everything, and often the time came back that the seller didn't want to do that because they weren't fully understanding the premise. So sometimes we try to have a conversation directly with the seller ourselves so we can better educate them so they can make their own informed decision after that. But once they understand the full picture, thankfully it's become a lot more popular in the past year.
And then also what they're like, I was doing that one transaction, and the seller didn't want to sell like before December. They want to sell next year, and that was a reason that they want to to have that funds available for on the next taxes, so that that transaction, when you're doing bookkeeping or, like talking to a lawyer and, I bought this property at this much amount, I don't want to sell, I want to sell, and this much, so the accountant and a lawyer talks to them that you do realize that you are going to pay this much taxes, and then they're more open, for vendor take back and other kind of strategies where they can save those funds. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, for all of you watching now, I think you can understand how important a vendor take back is in terms of negotiating a deal. And as Kiran mentioned earlier, don't make it the first part of your conversation unless it's brought up, of course. We just want to understand, one, the building, and two, the seller. And it's about creating a relationship and creating a little bit of trust in there. And then the VTB for sure. Now, Kiran, vendor take back mortgages, they sound awesome. And I can see so many people rushing to implement them right away when they're negotiating deals. But let's talk about some of the risks that are around VTBs. What are some of the things that so it's not too good to be true of a tool in our arsenal?
Right. Yes. And the first thing is, I missed mentioning one thing, is a rate. What rate? A lot of people ask me what rate I should ask the seller, or if they're asking 8 or 9 or 6 or 7, it's up to the DSCR. So talk to the mortgage broker, or even like you can run your own numbers. So this will be, so you're buying the property at this much, purchase price, and then your mortgage payments at the current interest rate, what the bank is giving you, with 25-year, 30-year amortization, this will be your monthly payments. And then is the property can take another mortgage, like when I take back is a mortgage, another mortgage where the monthly payments will be this much at this rate. Yeah. Can that DSCR be more than 1% or 1.25, right? Or whatever the requirement from mortgage broker is. If that is working, you can pay them higher. And if that doesn't work, even if the seller is open and it's not, if the DSCR doesn't work, you can't take it. Sorry. So sometimes like I'm underwriting a deal and we're that interest rate the seller is looking, it doesn't work. And then he was looking at a certain rate because he had another debt that he was paying. So he will taking, like a HELOC or line of credit so that he can pay, the difference. He want to make money, but then even break even, it was not working because that mortgage payments were high. And some of the lenders, they don't want any kind of second mortgages because the bank wants to be the first person on the mortgage. If the buyer defaults, they want to take the property back, and they don't want to be, for example, the seller is giving you 70% vendor take back, and then you cannot ask the bank for another another loan for 10% or 20%. The bank wants to be on the first position, and then vendor take back on the second, only if DSCR works. And talking about the risk is what if the term is too close? What if whatever you are trying to do to the property, what if that doesn't happen? How are you going to pay back that amount to the seller? And for example, somebody adding units, and if the city says no, you can't do that, the zoning doesn't work, and you're not going to make a profit, the cost is high, that you are not going to get high appraisal. So that's a risk that you're already committed to pay the seller this much amount. Now that source of payment, the appraisal where it was supposed to come, is it's not going to happen. Yeah. And the second thing is the term, right? If that term is 1 year, and that whatever you're doing to the property is taking longer, and the seller say, I'm not extending, you can always extend vendor take backs. Like you can write another agreement. That first agreement was like 1 year, and it's taking time, and we need another 6 months or 7 months. The second is the same thing. What is your plan? if the seller does not extend, and then the plan, whatever you're doing, construction or renovation, is taking longer. So that's the thing, right? So, and talk to your lawyer, accountant, and the first thing is talk to investors like us who have used all these strategies, multiple times before, and we just all stress about, it's all about the property.
It's all about the property, and it's all about the numbers, and that's why it's really important to have a two, if not three, exit strategies baked into
Mhm.
your deal, so you know if plan A doesn't go as planned as you'd hoped for it, as Kieran just gave a great example there, then you have plan B and plan C to focus on, and because you want to make your investors whole, and because the reputational risk is quite severe in this. So this is something to take very seriously when you're borrowing
Mhm.
people's money and you're working in the vendor take back. The other thing about the vendor take back, and in terms of trying to make sure it fits in those credit, the debt service ratios, is try to get a vendor take back that doesn't have any monthly payments at all, and you just give a lump sum when you pay out the seller. So definitely some creativity there as well, that you can make the seller believe in your vision and see your vision, and understand that it'll work out better in the long run for them that way. So great
Right.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Like, like numbers say everything, and try not to, I will say, try not to make it work. So let it just work. If your interest rate is 5, underwrite like 2 points more, and wait what your mortgage broker is giving you. And then other thing is, if you can get higher loan to value, why giving, you know, why giving interest? Or like, just if you can work without vendor take back, you're not stressed about giving it back, like, you know do it. So if it's a 5 MLI select, you can reappraise or do something. If you have another JV partner who can wait for the funds, or till the appraisal, so yeah, you're less stressed. Yeah.
Yeah, try to have, you might be using this many financial partners, some investors on this one project, but your list should be about this long of backup financial partners, just in case you need to tap into some extra reserve there. So always maintain a list, and keep that relationship healthy.
I agree. And all about the property.
All about the property. Try not to get too much emotion in that property. It's the emotion part can be really detrimental to a deal. However, I do want to point out that a lot of people do lend, not like the banks, based on emotion, based on relationship, based on that them just liking you, liking your family, liking what your goals are in life, and a relationship. So a lot of people, some of these, that's why the relationship is key when with the seller, because this could become a partnership that goes on and on and on, perhaps even through generations. So just keep that open mind.
I
But
agree.
Kieran, you dropped so many golden nuggets on this one. I appreciate it so much. And please, next time we do this show, Multifamily Deals and Dollars, do not say, Jim, thanks for having me on. This is our show. We're doing this together. All right. It's you and I, combo one, combo two. All right. So it was great having you on again, on our show, Kieran. And I look forward to next week when we do this again.
Yes, and any investor, like listening or watching the podcast, and you can send us a message what you guys want to talk about, and we are more than happy. Because if you're asking, a lot of other investors are also, like, want to know about that question, like answer that questions, and we can always answer. So do comment and send us what you want to hear, what you want to know more, and we'll love to answer those questions. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Happy
that's
investing.
Yeah, you can find Kiran Kaur. That's Kirankaur. You can find her on social media. And of course, I'm Jim Lawrence. And reach out anytime, anybody watching, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you next time. See you
All
next
right.
Tuesday.
Yeah.